morning, everyone, and welcome back to Teresa's Kitchen. This morning, I'm up early, ready to get started because the holidays are rolling right around the corner. So, my first recipe of the day that I will be creating is a banana nut pound cake. And this is my oldest son's favorite recipe. So, with that being said, I hope you will enjoy. So, here are the actual ingredients that I will be using in order to create my banana nut cake. I have 2 sticks of butter, flour, sugar, banana, as you can see, cinnamon, walnuts, eggs, buttermilk, and the utensils that I'll be using is, of course, a potato masher, my big serving spoon. I have my measuring cup to measure. I also have a sifter. Um, the sifter is going to use to make sure that when I'm using the flour that there's no clumps in it. So you make sure that your flour is nice and fine by the time you basically make your cake. And of course a bowl. And then I have my Pam spray right here. I don't know if I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. When I say the old-fashioned way, either I'm going to flour the pan just to make sure it don't stick, or I'm just going to use that. Um, and also, I basically learned how to make a cake by doing it by hand. So I'm not going to be using no fancy equipment such as a blender and or electrical blender and all that other stuff. I'm going to do everything by hand. So I hope you guys will enjoy. Stay tuned. So here I have a cup of flour. I'm going to be using 3 cups of flour. I'm going to first sift the flour before I basically begin the rest of my wet ingredients part of the recipe part. So here's the sifter. All you need to do is place it inside of the bowl like this. Pour in the whole cup and just lift the sifter up because it has a handle on it, and all you need to do is to begin to sift. It's going to make the flour much finer, and that way if there's any lumps, the flour will be lump free. So that's what you're going to do in order to make sure your flour is lump free. And it only takes like a second to do it. And you can sift it around when it starts beginning to become lower. So I'm going to add another cup of flour. And normally if the flour have like some clumps or whatever, it will basically stay in the middle of the sifter. I don't know if you can see, but right now this has been some pretty good flour. So all you need to do is add 1 more cup of flour, sift it, and I'll be right back. So I forgot an important ingredient. Because I'm using all-purpose flour, the flour is not really going to rise. So what I need to do is add like a teaspoon and a half of baking powder to my recipe so it can rise. And I'm also going to add like a half a teaspoon of salt. All of that's going to play an important role in your cake. So I have my last cup of flour that I'm going to put inside the sifter. And what I'm going to do is basically sift in these ingredients. Actually, I'm going to do like a teaspoon of the baking powder and then a half a teaspoon of salt. It's not going to taste salty or anything. It's just going to help it to rise. I know some people probably saying, well, why are you not using cake flour? I've tried cake flour. I'm not too much of a fan. My first cake that I learned how to make was a Philadelphia cream cheese pound cake, homemade. And it was amazing because you didn't have to use any type of wet ingredients. Just the eggs and the butter was your wet ingredients when it came to making that recipe. And like I said, I learned how to do everything handmade. So this is where I'm coming from, back when I was growing up, learning how to make stuff handmade. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just basically sift the rest of my ingredients together. It is not going to hurt anything that I put it in at the last minute, because basically all these ingredients is going to be combined into the wet ingredients. So, but as long as you remember to put it in, that's the key part of this recipe, is making sure that everything is in. So now it's done. Want to take a look? Hold on. So it doesn't look any too much different. It's just, like I said, it was sifted. There are no lumps in your flour, because sometimes, you know, your flour can get a little lumpy. So especially when you want to make that perfect cake and everything is just all right. So this is my sifted ingredients. So the next thing that I will be doing is that I'll be working on my wet ingredients. I'm going to be using 2 sticks of margarine at room temperature, or butter. Either one is fine with me, because it's all going to have that little saltiness, which is fine. And then you're going to add your eggs. So I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to cream the ingredients together, because that's what the step is called, creaming. So now the most important thing is getting your wet ingredients together. Part of the wet ingredients is having your wet ingredients at room temperature. I have 2 sticks of butter, okay, margarine, whatever way you want to call it. If you forget to basically put it at room temperature, I just basically put it in the microwave for like 20 seconds, and now it's nice and soft. Because also your eggs have to be at room temperature too, so you can easily blend it. And you're going to be creaming it with sugar, okay? So by the time we get through, it's going to be looking like a cake batter, believe it or not. So let me just go ahead and put this inside of the container. See how easy it is to come out. And then I'm going to start adding 1 egg at a time, and then I'm going to add a little sugar to it. So I'll be right back. And because everything is at room temperature, it just makes everything so much easier just to blend together. I mean, that's why I say I don't need a blender, because gee, you could take it out the night before. Look how smooth and creamy it's going to be still, even the night before. So this is what I mean by it looks like a cake batter, but it's not actually a cake batter. It's just going to be part of the ingredients. So I'm going to continue adding the rest of my butter and my other 2 eggs. And it's only going to take a few minutes just for me to get it together. Then butter. And then my last cup of sugar. You have to do it in steps. You can't do it all at one time. That's why it's you just take your time about making a cake. If you take your time, you can tell the difference in the cake itself when it comes out. It's nothing but love that's being put into this cake as you're making it step by step. I personally love pound cakes. So if I can make a pound cake, I will make it opposed to a box cake. So I teach myself to do a lot of stuff. It's funny because over 30 years ago when I first met my husband, I couldn't cook a lick hardly. And now 30 plus years later, it's like you can't tell me anything. Now look how smooth the batter has come out. This is what I'm talking about. This is why it's important to have everything at room temperature. And you're not scrambling, because you're not scrambling an egg. You're simply mixing it together to get the consistency of this type of batter that you want. So you remember the flour that was sifted earlier? I'm just going to simply add a little bit at a time. So let me get the flour. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to use the serving spoon. This is why I like to do everything by hand. I'm just gonna take a little bit at a time, work the muscles in those arms, and just blend. Not blend, but you know, fold in. Fold it in. And you just keep folding in until it's gonna come to a nice consistency. Nice yellow cake batter. So you just add in a little flour at a time. And again, this is 3 cups of flour that's being added to the bowl of the wet ingredients. So you just fold it in, just fold it. It's gonna look like it's not gonna work, but it will work. And it is gonna work. That's the reason why I took out my serving spoon. Because you guys are probably looking like, oh my God, that's a lot of work. No, I love what I do. So at the end of the day, teaching and cooking, because I am a teacher. I've been teaching for almost 20 years or a little prior to that. I should say 20 years because I was subbing. So yeah, I have a lot of experience behind myself. So with that being said, I put in my last bit of flour. So the fun part is going to come in too. The fun part is going to be the bananas. And if you can't find bananas that are really ripe like you want to, it's okay. Just go ahead and mash the heck out of those bananas because they're going to become smooth and creamy anyway. So you see my batter is really doughy now. But we're not done yet, okay? So I will be right back. So here's the kicker. I'm going to be doing something different that I normally don't do. But I will be adding some buttermilk to this recipe. Why? I bought it the other day to make something, and it's not very often that I use buttermilk. And I just felt like, maybe if I try the buttermilk inside of the banana cake, then maybe we got something going on. So I'm going to be using like 1.5 cups of this. And make sure you measure because you really don't want to overdo it. So I'm using like 1.5 cups. I'm going to try something different. Hopefully it comes out good. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix that ingredients to it, as you can see. Mussels. Everybody, mussels. I want it to be moist. You know, nice moist cake. Also, while we're over here getting everything together, make sure you preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Depending on where you're staying at, I'm not sure what the Celsius may be like or whatever the case may be at. If you need to have yours lower, turn it down lower. It should cook at least 45 minutes or until at least the toothpick comes out nice and clean. Just get a toothpick and poke the cake. So far so good. We have this creamy batter going on so far. And I'm not done yet. I am not done yet. So to that batter, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna at least incorporate, make sure I get all the buttermilk out, all the goodness. So I'm gonna take me at least 2 to 3 bananas. They're not as ripe as I wanted them to be, but it's okay. I bought them like a couple of days ago, so at least they started turning. So what I'm just gonna simply do is peel them and smash. If you don't have a potato smasher, use a fork. So that's also part of the recipe is the bananas. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'll probably use, actually I need 3 bananas. You want to make sure that banana flavor is coming out. And I'm not going to use the whole one because I already see the ingredients is already wet enough. So I'm just eyeballing stuff. So here are my bananas. Here's my potato masher. So I'm going to go to town again using these muscles. The reason why they say get ripe bananas because sometimes it's easier to just mash them up and just throw them inside there. But I'm going to take a few seconds just to mash them up so when they go in, everything's going to blend in perfectly. There's not going to be any lumps. Just make sure you try to mash them out really well. So that way when you pour it inside of your batter, it will go completely through your batter, you see? So you got to continue to try to get it as mashed as you can. And you can smell the sweetness of the banana already as you're mashing. I want to make sure that the banana is smooth throughout the cake. So once I pour it in the batter, you won't be getting cake and a lump here of a banana. So hope you guys can see this. If not, I'm going to stop right here so you guys can see exactly what I'm speaking of. So here are my bananas that I was smashing up using the potato smasher. If you can mash it some more, but this is what it should look like, the consistency by the time you're done mashing. So I'm just going to mash for a few more seconds. And then I'm just going to go ahead and pour it inside of the batter. And I'm just going to fold it over into the batter. So here I am. I'm adding the bananas to the cake batter that was made. Make sure you get all of the banana out the bowl. We're not leaving anything behind. So now is the fun part. Once again, combining all of the ingredients together, just mixing. We're folding everything in together. And the cake is coming out to be nice and smooth. So, some important ingredients that you also need to include. You know, I'm not a person to measure, so I eyeball a lot of stuff. I am going to be adding some cinnamon to it. Maybe about a teaspoon and a half. And then I will be adding some vanilla extract to it as well. Who cares if it has that real vanilla flavor? That's what we're looking for too. So we have the vanilla extract, and I've added some cinnamon to it, okay? I get a little tired tongue saying certain words. I don't know why, but okay. You guys know exactly what I was trying to say. I don't want to mix the cake too much. I hear that when you mix stuff too much, it's not good for the cake. But look at this. This was done by hand. You didn't need to take out all those appliances and to do that. Use your muscles. So what I am going to do, the last and final ingredient for this recipe will be some walnuts. I'm just only going to put like a handful. Just a little bit. Because what tends to happen with these walnuts, they always fall to the bottom of the cake. I don't even know why, but they always go to the bottom of the cake. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and spray my pan with some Pam, and I'm gonna pour the mixture around, and then I'm just gonna add a little bit more of the walnuts, and then my little secret ingredient is going to be the brown sugar, because it's gonna give it like that swirl kind of look. Yeah. Okay, so give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and spray my pan lightly. I'm not going to use too much because we already have oil and, well, when I say oil, I meant to say butter. So this is the butter flavored one. So I'm going to hold it back and I'm just going to spray it. Uh-oh, sprayed it the wrong way. Lord, help me. Make sure you spray around the edges so when the cake rise, it will rise. So that should be good. I sprayed the pan. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pour in this delicious batter. I know it's delicious because I made it on several occasions. The only difference is that on this go round, I decided to use buttermilk. So we gonna see how this turns out. Hold on, let me turn the camera so you guys can see how the batter looks coming out. Nice and creamy. Oh boy, it's scaring me. It's nice and creamy. And again, you didn't have to use no type of appliances to get a cake batter looking like this. So make sure you get all of the batter out. I'm gonna taste it. Tastes like banana to me. So you can shake it around and like get all the air out of it. And then what I said I was gonna do was just gonna get a handful of some brown sugar, okay? And I'm just gonna like drop it into the mixture, into the cake batter while it's in the pan. Listen, when I tell you something good, it's gonna be something delicious. So I'm just gonna sprinkle some around. Uh-oh. Just sprinkle around. So I think this should be enough. Let me show you what I'm speaking of. Let me just first put the nuts into walnuts to be exact. Put that at the top. Go around. Not putting too much because remember there was already some added to the batter. So I'm just putting a little bit there. And what you can do is simply get a butter knife. So let me stop right here so you can see exactly what I'm speaking of. So at the top of the pound cake batter, I put the walnuts and I put some brown sugar. So what I'm gonna simply do, I basically sprinkled it around. I'm just gonna take my knife and I'm just gonna go like this. So it can go throughout the batter. And leave it like that. And then it's gonna go into the oven. So this is going to be my buttermilk banana nut pound cake. This is it before going into the oven. So it should stay in there at least 45, 50 minutes. If it needs to cook longer, let it stay in there a little bit longer. The way you can tell, if you get like a toothpick, poke it. If it comes out clean, it's done. So my oven has already been preheated and now it's gonna go directly into the oven. So now that the cake have cooled off completely, this is how it looks. And all I did was flip it over, golden brown. You can either eat it plain, or you could just add some toppings to it, which I will probably do. So I did flip it over because I probably wanted to do like a little frosting or whatever. But remember when I told you guys that the nuts basically slip down to the bottom and they're all over and they're throughout the cake. So this is the cake after I added the walnuts and the brown sugar. Yum, yum, yum. So I'm going to flip it over and then I'm going to frost it. So prior to me putting on the frosting, this is cream cheese. It is softened. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add some powdered sugar. Don't measure. So the only thing I can say is eyeball it. Okay. So I went ahead and I frosted, put some frosting on the cake. This is the buttermilk banana nut pound cake here with cream cheese frosting with walnuts on top. Looks absolutely delicious. So perhaps I'll take a slice. We'll see how it looks. So here we are. I took a slice of the cake. Look at the moisture of the cake. So again, if you like what you see, hit like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you once again for watching Teresa's Kitchen on YouTube. Have a good day.